welcome to this webinar on WhatsApp. And as we know, May 15 is just around the corner, and I believe like everyone on this webinar is familiar with May 15 deadline, which was given to us back in January. It was first February 8, and WhatsApp pushed back the deadline to May 15. Now it's like only 2 weeks away. And so we thought that it's time to start discussing WhatsApp again. It was very popular back in January. And then Facebook postponed the deadline. We all forgot about it. It's time to remember there is a deadline coming soon. And so this webinar is aiming to talk about the future. Not the past, not the present, but the future of WhatsApp. And I have a really great panel here with rock star panelists and from all around the world. So we are covering like 3 continents and different time zones. And we are very, very excited about this webinar. So before we start, like this is an interactive discussion. So feel free to type your questions at question and answer, or raise your hand like during the discussion. I will be happy to give you the floor. So for your questions or comments and even suggestions, So I'll start with Mishi, because Mishi was like one of the most fierce critics of WhatsApp and Facebook back in January. And I learned a lot from her op-eds. And so Mishi, very briefly, just tell us, what is this new WhatsApp update about, and where it's going to take us?
Thank you, Burcu, for having me, and thank you for organizing. As we all saw that video, it's very difficult for Mr. Zuckerberg to ever actually tell the truth, and also not just do a 180 degrees within few minutes of announcing something. We just hope that he has a more sense of humor than he publicly shows. But what has happened now, and what Burcu is referring to, and I'm sure everybody is aware. So very much this week, I'm sure you all have followed the news. The pandemic is still destroying the world. The country of my birth, India, where a large part of my family still resides, and so do my friends, are facing a catastrophe like other parts of the world saw in the last 1 year. And it dawned on me that despite the fact that several of us did not want to use WhatsApp, but were forced to use the platform again to come together and organize, whether it is organizing oxygen cylinders or a bed in a hospital, or even space in crematoriums, or plasma, or blood, or money for people. And it also tells you about the power of the platform and how it has infiltrated each of our lives. It's not just in India, but around the world, it has become such an integral part. I live in the United States, where many people are not familiar with the application. But if you're in any part of the world which actually matters, where the markets are, and India being the largest market for WhatsApp, or Brazil, or several countries in Africa, you would see how important it is. What has happened is now that Facebook, as it says, is not proposing to share the content of WhatsApp chat with Facebook. It can't, because WhatsApp has no access to the content of the messages on its own system. It's not even proposing to begin sharing the information, whether the date is February 8th or May 15th of its users, because it has been doing that all along. Once in 2016, for a very limited time, there was a chance which was offered to the rest of the population, as the video which Burcu played in the beginning tells us, to a chance to opt out. But if you were not using WhatsApp in 2016, or you did not take the advantage of that offer at that time, then you've already been ratted out by WhatsApp to Facebook. So it's not changing to require everyone who messages a business on WhatsApp to allow their WhatsApp profile data and their phone number to be stored on Facebook. That already happens everywhere. It is now only disclosing to the world that, you know what, we've been pillaging your data all along, but now we are going to put it out in a policy, and here it is. Now, a very regrettable misunderstanding, as Facebook says, or perhaps a regrettable understanding, because Zuckerberg's capacity for appreciation of irony is under test. We are told now that they're only collecting metadata, and as if it's less than data. Now, what has happened is, if you saw the earnings call, which has now told us how the 5 companies have actually had a bonanza time during the pandemic, one would also realize that Facebook itself has turned out to be the least valuable part of the Facebook. The part of it which was newsfeed attention mongering has become increasingly controversial after the 2016 elections. Facebook would rather simply now be the messaging outlet which gives metadata about who is talking to whom in the world and control the scrolling of everybody, which is Instagram, and eating up everybody's engagement. Pretty much everything which is going on behind the scene is now about increasing the engagement on scrolling and not about Facebook. So it is preparing for a post-Facebook future, which is reliant on its other properties, namely WhatsApp and Instagram. So as much as it seems that our privacy is for the first time being violated, that's not what's happening. It's only being told to us that it's being violated now. And some of us decided not to use the platform, but that's where the network effects which come in. If most of your friends and family are, how difficult it becomes to leave that. And then there is the introduction of WhatsApp Business, where businesses are able to offer personal customer support to your audience with automated messaging, chatbot-like capabilities. The only few things which one can speculate is that because Mr. Zuckerberg does not invent anything, he just cheats and takes and buys. So obviously our friends in China have been much ahead of the curve. So with envy, he looks at them and thinks, why am I not the center of the world? Because he always wants to be. So he wants to come up with something called Libra, which will perhaps liberate us from him or the world, which is their currency. Then he comes up with things like, why isn't everything bought through WhatsApp or one of my properties? Because even if you're not on Facebook and you are communicating through WhatsApp, everything is still tracked. So this is the desire to become WeChat or anything which China is doing. And that's why the rhetoric for Mr. Zuckerberg is always, oh, if you will regulate us, China will defeat us. That's his best argument so far. Not innovation, but that's true to him. WhatsApp also is not something which he came up, just bought it for that. And when you spend something of $19 billion of shareholders' money, you will monetize it sometime. And so here we are monetizing, forced to tell the truth, and only some people stopping you, including Indian courts. There is a case which is pending in a federal court in India, which has basically decided to say, well, you can just decide whatever you want to do. And hopefully before May 15th, something might come up. But we are not very hopeful because of what's happening in India in terms of the pandemic. So overall, this just tells us that if we are going to be effective at helping to make public policy and perform commercial pressure about this, we need to understand what he means when Mr. Zuckerberg says that the future is private. And he's preparing, along with his team, for a soon to be post-Facebook future where other properties matter more and integrate better with this advertising revenue machinery, which Apple with its new iOS update has decided to eat the lunch for. So that's what I would set the stage with.
Thank you very much, Mishi. So that was a really great introduction. And since January, we've been hearing for Facebook that like this is not about like, you know, your privacy or your messages. This is all about business, Facebook, WhatsApp business. So from New York to let's go to India, you know, Parminder, Delhi. And India is the biggest market for WhatsApp with 400 million users. And WhatsApp is planning to introduce new features in India. So let's hear from Parminder, like, you know, what's happening now in terms of WhatsApp and its business model, and what are your predictions? And then from Delhi, we'll go to Rio, and we'll ask Michelle from Brazil, and Michelle will tell us like what's happening in Brazil, and what are the plans of WhatsApp for Brazilian market, which is WhatsApp's second biggest market with 90 million users. And then when we hear, like after we hear India and Brazil, two of the biggest markets of WhatsApp, we will travel to Hong Kong. And then I'll give the floor to Arvind, because Arvind is very familiar with the WhatsApp business model, but he has something which most of us don't know or not familiar with, WeChat. And then he will tell us a little bit about WeChat's business model and WeChatization of WhatsApp. But let's go to Delhi. Parminder.
Thank you, Burju. So I would, Mishi already spoke about what actually has happened, and she also spoke about the Indian context. She knows it well. And I'll try to take from there. And first of all, to add to what Mishi said, that if you're an Indian, perhaps if you're a Brazilian, I haven't experienced it, because here it is not a matter of learning from newspapers or academic papers or policy discussions. Each of us, the first screen we look at in the morning is WhatsApp, and that's the last screen which people look at, and almost everybody does. People may not admit it, but that's very natural, because it's your closest friends saying just maybe good night, or people whom you care for in this kind of times, like now in India, or even those groups which share humor and whatever. But that's the personalized space you always go to first in the morning and several times in a day. People are pretty addicted to it. So that is the attention window for people who get used to it. I'm sure the WeChat experience would have been similar. I do not know how people live in Europe and US in absence of WhatsApp. That's how once you start using it, it feels. So what happened? So that's the kind of attention everybody gives to WhatsApp in India, and I think Brazil, and probably soon it will be in other places. Now, what happened in India recently was, apart from these changes, which is the matter of discussion today, is that WhatsApp started WhatsApp business in many other places, but here it has gone beyond. And realizing that WeChatification may not be that easy in current circumstances, especially with countries being a little more proactive to allowing building one player, multiple kind of entry points in multiple sectors, they made a arrangement with the biggest business house in India, which is Reliance. And they entered into a partnership with the technology arm of Reliance, which is the Jio Platforms. And then there is a retail arm of Reliance, which is the biggest offline retailer, and it's getting into online retail. And there is a 10% investment of WhatsApp into the technology arm, about a little less than $6 billion. So this is the way they've already started entering the e-commerce space. And of course, they also allow all kinds of businesses to have a business account. It is not very clear yet whether Reliance gets a priority or not. Probably it does. If it doesn't, it would get, because as the features multiply, there are many kind of features which have been announced, right up to the shopping cart features. And WhatsApp is also having a payment, digital payment company in India. I mean, digital payment, not a company, but digital payment service in India. So they've gone much ahead than other places to do e-commerce. Now, this violates a lot of Indian laws, in my understanding, because what WhatsApp has already done becomes an e-commerce platform by the definition of e-commerce platform in India, which puts it under many kinds of regulations, which they have been trying to smartly avoid. And I think it gets into many kind of regulations of Europe also, which has come up with many kind of platform control regulations. So the funny, and I mean, these are the things which have happened and which are dangerous, because this is a direction towards WeChatification, but perhaps it may not just be one company trying to be everything, but building a digital ecosystem. There's a local elites who also want their share of the pie. Probably that's the way to do businesses increasingly in different countries, which doesn't solve our problem greatly. It does slightly decentralize power between a local biggie and an outside biggie, but doesn't really go to where we want in terms of public interest. So that's what is happening. And I think in other countries also, they would do this kind of arrangements. Now, a few points which I want to make in this regard is that there is a certain dissonance in digital activists and among regulators also in terms of what exactly this phenomenon is. And because in the activism space, there is a privacy related people, the political and civil rights kind of people who look at things in a privacy manner. And there are others in a very small part which looks equally or focus more on the economic exploitation part, which could be a personal economic exploitation. It could be a South-based or country-based economic exploitation. It could be groups-based economic exploitation. And the very concept of privacy now as one special kind of exploitation, as we knew over decades, is expanded into a multiple hydra-headed thing, where the economic exploitation, the cultural exploitation, is social exploitations, I don't know what kind of exploitations, are not very different from what is narrowly known as very important personal invasion. And I think we need to start to break these boundaries without diluting anything and be able to analyze things in a joined up manner. How economic exploitation, I mean, it's like old thing that if you don't have bread on the table, there is no freedom of expression, because if you're dependent on bread with the landlord, you can't go and shout against the landlord. It's very simple. If you take his bread, then you sing his praises. So and this is known long time of what is called indivisibility of rights. And we need to bring in the regulation of the kind of phenomenon we are watching, these things. And I'll just quickly talk about similar problems exist on the regulatory side also, as it happens in the advocacy side. Now, there are the technology regulators, which look at privacy, etc. And then there are economic regulators, which is the Competition Commission of India and other competition regulators, which have a very different take on things. And they have a very different worldview. But what is happening is that all these digital developments are landing somewhere in between the technology regulator and the competition regulator. And we need to figure out how economic regulation, privacy regulation, cultural, north-south things all gets together, and then it gets differentiated. And I think this work is needed. And what is happening with this announcement that WhatsApp, which has now first garnered our attention space, is now going to use it for promoting high-level commerce through integration with WhatsApp, but also integration with other kind of commerce engines, for me, most of all shows this problem. And having stated this problem, I think the first thing we, of course, need to do is to put our foot down and say that if you can't do it, I mean, small thing, and I was talking to Burcu a little earlier, that what has happened in Turkey or in India is not that people have understood what really is the problem, but the politician felt simply bad about, if you're not doing it with the Europeans, don't do it with us. Now, I'm not very clear what you are not doing with Europeans, but whatever you are not doing with European, it looks very bad for us and colonizing for us to not do it with us. And so simply stop doing that. And if you can't deal with the privacy thing, we'll throw it to the competition guy, who, by the way, recently approved the WhatsApp investment into Reliance, which is actually more problematic perhaps than the WhatsApp connections with Facebook. So I think that's the kind of mess which we need to start now getting out of. That's all.
That's a really great point. From there, let's go to Brazil, because I want to hear from Michelle, like what's happening in Brazil, because Brazil is like the second biggest market for WhatsApp. And Michelle, tell us, like, you know, how Brazilians took this policy update, like, because we know that there was an outrage in India, there was an outrage in Turkey, and there was an outrage in the rest of the world. But how about Brazil? Because WhatsApp already started to offer payment systems in Brazil, right? And it was approved by the Constitution Court or the Central Bank of Brazil. Yeah, tell us a little bit about what's happening in Brazil with WhatsApp.
Thank you very much, Burju. Thank you, Michi, for these words also. It's very insightful and inspiring to hear. And I think that the first thing of all is that these things that Michi and Parminder said, they show us how the problem is complex. Because we have a big company that has a lot of power, that has concentrating power in the past few years. And they're like playing with our jurisdictions. So we have a double standard here. Like in Europe, we have a standard that they don't get the metadata from people. But in the rest of the world, for the second-class citizens, they have another kind of policy. So this is a problem that shows us problems of jurisdictions, problems of like telling lies, not telling all the truth, like telling a little histories about the case. And this goes to our authorities, to different authorities, like Parminder said, to competition authorities, to data protection authorities, to consumer authorities, to courts, and everything. So this is a very complex issue. But one thing we have for sure, we need cooperation. Like we need cooperation from these authorities to see the whole thing, what's happening. We need cooperation like for us in civil society. So this webinar is a great example of how to do it, because we are talking with different approaches, with different places in the world actually, and we are looking to a problem and trying to like to see the future, to see how we can get a better place, a better to see our values and things like this. So this is the thing, like we need cooperation to deal with this complex markets, because we need to see the whole picture of the planet, or at least try to see it. And the second thing is that this case shows like a kind of a pattern of big techs. Like in 2014, they bought the competitor, like Facebook looked and said, well, WhatsApp is growing, I need to buy it, and they bought it. They tell to regulators, some kind of regulators in the world, not all of the regulators like scrutinize this merger. And Europe also, it was approved, but then in 2016 they came and changed everything. And it's very strange, because in Europe they have like authorities with sanctions, with fines, with deals, and we had a big, not so big fine for misleading information, because Facebook said in the first place they couldn't integrate the data between WhatsApp and Facebook, but then in 2016 we checked it was possible. So in 2017, the EU regulator did it. And in 2018, they have a deal about GDPR, about data protection law in Europe, right? So this is why we have like this double standard. In Europe, the regulators did something. In the rest of the world, regulators did nothing or said that, well, that's okay. You gave the option, you gave 30 days to the person, go there in the app in some hiding place and say, well, I don't want it. I have to opt out. But the thing is that now in 2021, we have this new privacy policy. We have a different kind of situation. We have a pandemic going on. Like most of the people are in their home. They're like a different kind of approach with internet, because internet now is the only way probably you can talk with your family. You can go to work. It's everything but internet. And this is how I would like to show just some numbers from Brazil to check. So you can see how Brazil uses WhatsApp a lot. Like we are heavily users of WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram. But just to see, we have 211 million of Brazilians and 134 billion of Brazilians, they access internet. So we have, first of things, this gap of access, but something like 99% of these 134, they access internet by the mobile phone, by the cell phone, smartphones. And 58% is only by the cell phone. So the rest of the population just don't have another place to access this to access internet. And the most vulnerable people from what we call class C and D for the or IBGE or statistics, they said that 85% of these Brazilians are only for the cell phone. Like in the class D and E, the most vulnerable people just access internet for the cell phone, and 62% is just for prepaid plans. So when we get this first of access things, how we really access internet, we start to understand how big is the problem, because we have something like the numbers say that something like 120 million users of WhatsApp in Brazil, 127 million users of Facebook, something like 95 million of Instagram. So the number is very high. Like 99% of the Brazilians of smartphones has WhatsApp in the cell phone, and 93% of people uses it daily. Like we are, Pam said that we start in the morning with WhatsApp in the screen, and when we go to sleep, WhatsApp in the screen also. That's because
I have a question, Michelle. Sorry to interrupt. So apart from messaging, what can you do on WhatsApp in Brazil?
We do everything. Like we shop things. People.
How do you
like
shop on? How do you
church.
shop on WhatsApp? With you communicate
Like,
with small businesses or?
Yes, with small business and other big business. We use WhatsApp. We are heavily users of WhatsApp. So there are researchers that say that we spend like 30 hours per month in WhatsApp. Like it's a lot. And why this happens like this? I mean, we have like a problem of first of all the zero rating, net neutrality, because the three biggest companies, the three telecom companies that we have, they sell the plans with internet and WhatsApp for free, like it doesn't discount from your plan. And we have also problems related to, I don't know, net neutrality and how our authorities see these. But this is one thing, just to show that WhatsApp is very important here in Brazil, and Facebook and Instagram, and we are really heavily users of it. So what are the problems that we have? Like problems like disinformation, so people just have access to WhatsApp. You don't have access to another
Before we talk about the problems, like let's talk about the innovative parts of like this messaging system, the ecosystem. So like we'll talk about the fragments. So sorry to interrupt, but I'm gonna ask Erwin, because he was like shaking his head when he was hearing, he was hearing you talking about the high numbers of like Brazilian users. So as I said, Erwin is joining us from Hong Kong. So I think Erwin is a user for WhatsApp, I believe, but also WeChat, like, and you know,
also WeChat.
Yeah, also WeChat. So you know the two systems very well, and we don't know. I mean, I don't know WeChat. What I heard from people is like, if you live in China and if you don't have WeChat, you don't exist. That's what my Chinese friends told me. Like, you can't function in China without WeChat. So that's why I'm really, really curious, like, Erwin, you heard it from other panelists, like, and particularly from India and Brazil, like how like WhatsApp is dominant in those markets. And you know the business model of WhatsApp. So let's hear from you, like, you know, how do you compare those two? Because that will be, I think, eye-opener for everyone on this panel, but also attending this webinar. And I know that you have a very great, like, you know, mind mapping of that. So floor is yours, Erwin.
Okay, maybe I would share that and use it for all the numbers, because we are talking numbers and I don't want to get it wrong. But can you guys see this, right? You guys can see this. Okay, so basically, I think what Michelle say is it's so true, that when you rely on an app, it can become your life. But this actually, WeChat is actually, this is their motto, this is their marketing message. And then what does it mean? And then obviously we are talking about Mark Zuckerberg being, let's say in India, 400 million people, 120 million people in Brazil. WeChat have 1 billion active user. So this is something that MZ, it's envy about. So and then this is, and obviously this is they have been running this for quite some time, and then they've been very innovative. The law is obvious in a country where privacy is actually not that important. So that's why it's been generating many new business model. And I think it's actually a good idea that we kind of share through the model how it works. So I think what I will start is actually, I will start with a video from New York Times. We'll share this presentation later on, and then people can actually take a look at it. But I think a 2 minutes time on this New York Times presentation will actually help us to understand how WeChat is being used day to day in people's life. Can you hear?
It's a Swiss Army knife that basically does everything for you. It's your WhatsApp, Facebook.
Oops, sorry.
Of, for lack of a better word, super. It's a Swiss Army knife that basically does everything for you. It's your WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, and Uber. It's your Amazon, Instagram, Venmo, and Tinder. But it's other things we don't even have apps for. There are hospitals that have built out full appointment booking systems. There are investment services. There are even heat maps that show how crowded a place is, be it your favorite shopping mall or a popular tourist site. The list of services goes on basically forever. But it's not the variety of things you can do on WeChat that makes it so powerful. It's the fact that they're all in one app. So why does that matter? Hypothetically, imagine you're sitting at home and one day you notice your corgi is dirty. You open WeChat, hit a few buttons, and a few hours later, a man shows up at your door with some shampoo and a big vacuum. Your dog gets cleaned and he looks great. You take a photo, you share it with your friends, and tag dog cleaning business. You haven't left the app. Your friend who likes Hello Kitty and works a boring office job is slacking off at work and looking at WeChat. She sees the photo of your clean corgi. She decides she wants her poodle clean. She clicks the tag on your photo and orders the same service. Within seconds, the man with the big vacuum is on his way to her house. She pays him, and he's happy because he got paid instantly on WeChat. She starts chatting with you to thank you. Neither of you have left the app. While chatting, she tells you about a new hip noodle joint. She says, you have to come. It's a schlep, but you accept. She orders food while still at her desk. You order a taxi. She pays for the food. On the way to her house, the man with the big vacuum invests the money he earned from both of you into a wealth management product that's probably a little too risky. Neither of you nor the man with the big vacuum have left the app. Both of you arrive and the app tells the kitchen you're there. Your WeChat profile photo pops up on the wall. It's an old photo from the year you had that weird part in your hair. Of course she makes a comment. Your food is served. You notice your meat is a bit overcooked, so you snap a photo and post a disparaging restaurant review. You're already on your phone and you remember you still owe your friend money because she paid. You transfer her money. Neither of you, the man with the big vacuum, nor the restaurant, have left the app. At the restaurant, there are no menus, there are no waiters, there is no cashier. There is only WeChat. By rolling so many functions into one single app, it's altered the concept of virality. It's no longer just videos or images or tweets that can go viral. It's a dog washer, noodles, all sorts of companies and products that get the push of the social network. Here in China, that network is 700 million.
That's 5 years ago.
Sounds great, right? Well, it is, but using a single app to find a date, schedule an oil change, or notarize a document also enables WeChat to collect a staggering volume of personal data. They know what you talk about it with, what you read, where you go, why you're going there, who's there, how you spend money when you're online, how you spend money when you're offline. The list goes on indefinitely. For advertisers, this is a miracle. The combined data of Facebook, Amazon, Google, and PayPal all in one place. The problem is, all of the data is information Chinese companies are forced to share with the Chinese government, which has a long record of human rights violations and isn't exactly shy about stalking its citizens. If you're not in China, why does this matter? It matters because we're starting to see a number of Western tech companies attempt to replicate super apps like WeChat. For the companies, it's incredibly powerful. And for you and me, it's convenient and even transformative technology. But of course, it could also be problematic. Concentrating so much data in so few hands could lay the groundwork for an Orwellian world where companies and governments can track every single movement you make.
Okay, this thing have 1 billion active user now. That the video was 4 years ago. Oops, let me stop that. And then it's moving into all kinds of part of your life. Basically, Uber is just one small feature in there, and then and all these things are there. And let's see at the scale. So basically, every day, same thing. Everything works from there. If I think what Michelle was showing was that within WeChat, within WhatsApp, you can use messaging to do different things and so on. One of the things that WeChat do is it basically have API against all things. Let's say all the bank in China, they don't have their own app. Their app only works within the chat application. So I can just call up my bank through a chat, and then the payment will actually go through because it's tied to the whole thing. This is so powerful that when I go to change phones, I just need to download one app because all my password, everything is in there, and everything is being controlled. So let's see valuation. Depends on which month you look into it. This month, Facebook is still a little bit more have a bigger market cap than WeChat's mother company, Tencent. But this is last year I think in July, that was the month where WeChat, the mother company Tencent, is worth more than Facebook, just basically with that one app. So this is obviously none of you have actually heard of WeChat too much, but this is just one country, obviously a very big one. But the way that they run all the things, they've been able to capitalize on it. And knowing our greedy friend, MZ, he would really want to actually control things that way. And that's very, very powerful. Then this in the video, it also mentioned about this super app concept. And this super app concept is actually very, very powerful. Mishi mentioned about payment, Libra, which is something what I think the whole world kind of stopped MC from doing. But I heard that it seems that in Brazil that they are coming back with all these digital payment type thing and so on. But in China, it's a cashless society. There is no cash. Basically, everything you do, you need to do it in the app. And then when you are offline, let's say in a supermarket or even in hawkers when you buy in the street, we have all these QR codes, and they don't take cash from you. So if you're a tourist coming in, you cannot buy anything from the streets because no, they don't take money. They only pay through this, and there are two of them. One is Alibaba, the other it's WeChat. They both own about 50% of the whole market, which is 600 million people. So most of these people they don't have wallets. They just have WeChat payment or Ali payment. So the society has become a society where everybody is using QR code and nobody really use cash. And that exactly fit into what Libra was trying to do, because if Facebook is trying to talk to Visa, MasterCard last year and the year before to actually do this, then there's no need that you actually rely on your country's currency. This is especially true for developing country when your currency is actually not that stable. Think about, let's say in India, I think only a few years ago, they launched a digital ID. And then in WeChat, this become the digital ID card, basically. So the app works for the government to actually become the ID card. So all you need to do is just show the app, and then that's become your ID card. So because of that, people start having banking within the system. And through the system, this is the same thing. You basically control everything if that's in there. And then think about all the funding that might come in, say in Chinese RMB. And if the people don't trust it, they can change to another currency on the app very quickly. So this is like money exchange within the app without cash. So this is part of a banking function that becomes part of the app that you can actually start working on. The reason why it moves so fast is that in China is a country where there were no credit cards. There's only debit card. I think most of the developing country, there are only debit cards, and there are not many credits out there. And because of that, people start using cards to do things. They would actually use the wallet to do it. That's how in 4 or 5 years, they actually just take over. So this is a country where Visa and MasterCard is not very strong. Then you start thinking about credit card loan you money. Then they become the bank and they start loaning you money. So think about how powerful. It's not just cashless. It's because everything is in there. You put your salary in there, you exchange into their money, and they can be loan sharks through the process. So these are definitely not what we think of what Facebook is doing today. Okay, so let's compare that to another company. This actually in China, China is the largest second market for iPhone, for Apple. And Apple, it's very, very fragile in China because outside of the US, when people want to change to the Android phone, at least Apple have an ecosystem. It has iCloud, different things, and we know that Apple is actually launching this 14.5, the new app today, the system policy today, that actually force you to actually start telling people that people are stealing things from you. But here, when you change phone, you just need to change one app. And that's WeChat. So when you change to an iPhone, when you change to an Android phone, you don't need to go to the App Store, or you just go to the App Store to do one thing, download WeChat, and everything is in there. It do the biometrics, it control the camera. So Apple's basic power of controlling the whole ecosystem is gone, because Apple's WeChat is not a competitor to all the apps on iPhone. It's actually, the competitor is actually App Store. So you don't need App Store because all you need is just one app. So that's why even in China, when 2 years ago, Donald Trump started limiting Android from getting into some of the phones, they don't really need that, because all they need is just one app that everything is in there. So think about competition in that area. That's one thing to look into. Then think about other competitions. Games. What does WeChat have to do with games? WeChat, it's the most profitable gaming company in the world. So they're bigger than Sony PlayStation, they're bigger than Microsoft, they're bigger than all these people, and so on. So because of what they own, they've been able to leverage and push games and integrate games into multi-user game, obviously, mobile multi-user game, and it's all integrated into the chatting platforms and so on. So Tencent, which is WeChat's mother company, it's not just China. This is the largest, most profitable gaming company in the world. Then look at other things. Ebook. You would think, oh, Amazon, right? Well, Amazon ebook, Kindle, it's smaller than China Literature, which is a subsidiary of Tencent, which basically started from WeChat. They just the book market, they are bigger than Amazon. And then let's talk about music. Spotify. They are bigger than Spotify. Well, valuation wise, they are not. Both are public company now. Last week I checked. But business wise, they have more users than Spotify. They have more bargaining power with the music companies than Spotify. So think about MC. I can if he have this app that in Brazil that control everybody's life, he can start moving into every single industry, music, books, news, and money control, where they can actually control everything and actually go from there. And Tencent, it's actually a very, very powerful company. It actually invests into multiple things. So these are the unicorn that they invest into. And actually, from an investment angle, they are much more powerful than Facebook. But the thing is, they don't take up, they don't control companies. They spin off companies, but most of the companies they invest into, they own less than 30%. So it's like a smart investment, strategic alliance type thing. But that's how they move into all the different business and start working. Another last slide. Talk about NGOs and charity. Okay, in 2 days, this is in 2019. 2 days, WeChat Tencent Charity, which is just one function. This is oops. This is all the function that you have within WeChat. This is just one function, but this is the charity function. Within just 2 days, 48 hours, they asked for, why don't we start doing charity and then collect money so that we can help people? Within 2 days, they get $300 million US. I checked the same year, in the whole year, Kickstarter, one of the largest company in the world doing crowdsourcing, only do 400 million. So in 2 days, they do 75% of what Kickstarter can do. This is really big. So obviously today we're not talking about WeChat. It's a very powerful company. It's more mellow in a sense of, at least it's really not digging into too much stuff. But the way it control people's life, the way it's so powerful it is, it's definitely have Mark Zuckerberg looking into it, and he have all these ideas that he can capture. And think about all these different potential companies in the world where it's supposed to be bigger than them: Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, and so on. But they've been able to actually beat them in these markets. This is how super app can work. And if we leave the power in one or two figures, or one or two companies, they be able to actually drive that. And that's something that's really scary. How's back to you, Bijou?
Thank you, Erwin. This was like amazing, and it was really, really concerning. And I just see like the concerning faces. And I was looking at Michel, and like when you were talking about the payment system, like his face was like getting more and more concerned. So let's start with Michel. Like, tell us about your concerns. Like, what do you think? Like, is this the future for Brazil? Do you think Brazil will get there in very near future?
Well, I don't know. I'm very worried about this super app because the life is completely in the super app. Like you can go out. You are like kind of a prison. You have to do it. And but what's happened in Brazil in the last months? WhatsApp had this WhatsApp Pay. It asked it to our central bank to start it, and it has some problems in the beginning. It has an interim measure from our national authority, but then it was approved. So it's starting to have this WhatsApp Pay. So it's not in the, it has not started yet, in fact, but in a few months, probably it's going to start. So this is one of the problems that are getting more and more complex, because here in Brazil, we have a different system of arrangements of payments, like we have Visa and MasterCard and other flags. And I think that the first impression is that things are getting very, very complex here in Brazil because of what we saw and what we are checking in China, in India, and we are seeing like a big concentration of power. And this is what worries us more, because this power means maybe something with democracy, maybe something with information and disinformation. These people that runs these firms, then big techs, they have the power to say what are we going to see, with whom we're going to talk, with whom we're going to have our business and something like this. And they decide the policies, they decide the things, and we have just to adapt ourselves, adapt our laws, adapt our jurisdictions to it. So this is, for me, is the most dangerous problem we are facing now, because this is concentration of data, concentration of power. This is exploitation. So for me, this is the main concern, because when I saw Irving's talking all the features that this app has, I was very, very concerned about it.
I can see that from your face. Okay, let's ask like Mishi, like, are you concerned?
No, I'm not concerned. I think when you talk about India and China, the numbers are always mind-boggling. And let's not forget, there is a lot about the political systems here. This kind of concentration of power and the data pillaging, which is allowed in China, I'm glad will never be allowed in European Union. And if we can actually walk the walk and stop pretending to be just pro-American platforms, other companies should, or other countries should also understand that if there is any truth about democratic values, then you really need not invest in systems which are going to strip the human society of any dignity or any kind of freedom of thought, which privacy enables, is left to them. Efficiency is not always the right value creation. And value capturing doesn't always have to be in dollars. So with envy, as Mr. Zuckerberg looks at WeChat, and even Indian billionaires look at our neighbors across the Himalayas, they also will have to at least face what the public wants, which is their customers. And that's why perhaps, Burju, you've gathered everybody, you're trying to do something about it, and people are resisting. I think this kind of exhaustive social graph, which Irwin's Miro board really plays out very clearly, also tells us that that kind of centralization of data structures, that kind of centralization of power is a major issue here. And that's, we watched how the economy played out when people were losing their jobs, but what was happening with the GAFA plus Microsoft. We've seen that the business model here is either you vertically and horizontally integrate every kind of model, which is to Parminder's point about why there is so much investment in Reliance Jio, for two reasons, not just by Facebook, but it's by Intel, it's by Google. It's mostly to understand that there is a regulatory infrastructure which exists, which favors one particular party. So piggybacking on that one. but also that vertical integration which it will offer. And that's the future many people want to go to. But what is good for the tech companies may not always be good for the society. And European Union has always said it's in the tech innovation backwaters. But how do you define innovation? If innovation is always going to be that our business model is only surveillance, it's only destruction of data and any kind of control over one's own life. I don't want to live in that society. I don't want to live in a society where the street hawker will tell me that I can't buy something with money. And what money gives me is the freedom. When I spend cash, you can't go and correlate to the fact and find where that note came from. But when I do a digital dust, which I'm leaving around, you obviously kind of find a lot of things. And I do want to say that there is a lot to learn for sure. But that innovation has been possible because there are structures which don't exist in China. That kind of sandboxes everybody would like to have. But we've seen that Jack Ma disappeared for a long time. That's not going to happen in another society. We've seen what's happened with Hong Kong, or we are watching how Taiwan is treated. And I really want to insist is that when tech permeates every single part of your life, then your politics cannot be extricated and separate from what tech infrastructure we choose. I, for one, know that Apple's update has caused a lot of flutter, and Facebook in its pretense does not even want a small thing. It's not going to really make much of a difference. It's a tiny pop-up which keeps coming. Do you want to opt in? Do you want to opt in? Do you want us to track you? Do you want us to track you? But the resistance is because there is at least only in the next 1 year, a loss of $8 billion advertising dollars, which is going to happen. I understand that Apple wants to control its complete ecosystem. And for but the beauty is Apple is making its money by selling fancy jewelry, which is those very fancy iPads and very fancy phones at a very expensive price. And for the first time in my life, I don't like Apple because I can't install free and open source software on my phone if I have an Apple phone, and I can still play that with Android. But if I were to talk about privacy, I'm first time thinking about that ecosystem in a different way. And Apple is not selling its, not monetizing its users' data. And that says something about which direction we are going. These identifier for advertisers thing, it's a very important matter which has come up. But a large part of the world's population cannot afford Apple's devices. So when we're talking about Brazil's, when we're talking about India's, we do have to talk about a very different infrastructure. And we cannot also forget that the internet is already splintered. We no longer live in that only China, Iran, and Russia have a different internet. Europe has a different internet. And I really don't care if the politicians want WhatsApp because they're envious. Why do the Europeans get a better deal? Why don't we get a better deal? I think that's a positive sign because Europeans, that means at least whether it is because of envy or how politicians think, they're at least thinking of something which is a value which the public wants, which is about privacy or which is about maintenance and prevention of what the messaging offers to us. I also think that after the January announcement of WhatsApp, there has been tremendous money which has been spent on saying, oh, you know what, this is a miscommunication problem.
Yeah, it's a misinformation. Like you don't know what you are talking about.
Yeah,
like
that's not what we are doing. And then if you pull up WhatsApp, and as Burju said, you know, they'll give you this notifications. They give notifications about, oh, we're not reading your messages. Oh, well, heck yeah, you're not, we know it. I mean, what do you think? We don't understand tech or we don't know how Signal works? But that's just a red herring because the idea is metadata is more important than data. Who cares what I said to Burju? But everybody cares that Mishi talked to Burju. How long did she talk? Which device was she using that time? What was the provider she was using? And the fact that I'm able to get that data and also sell it to all the businesses which are now integrated with that. So when I talk about China, I learn a lot, but I'm also very cognizant of the reality that that's a political system which I don't have much control over. And it has even bigger problems to solve. But here, either we can stop pretending and we can all say we want to go the China way. And then that's fine. Then you just stop your pretense about, oh, we're a democracy, we're a this or we're that or blah, 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 and we really care about things, etc. Or you come to a reckoning that this is the way we are going. I like honesty, I like transparency, and I like to have control over my tech. And that's why I like open source software. And so I'll go Signal way. But important to remember that network effects plays a very, very crucial part here. And to Michelle's point, we fought the network neutrality thing in 2015, and India kicked them out with free basics. And now he's telling us, which was the future when we were describing in India, everybody was like, oh, you're a Luddite. And oh, this is fear mongering. But that's what you see. When you offer that, you get people into a cohort and you make that possible. So to me, I think that when we talk about China, we have a lot to learn, but we also have lessons to learn about which direction we are going. And I think it is at least there's clarity. Xi Jinping has no qualms about telling you what the political system is. Americans have a problem because they want to pretend to be the saviors of the world and then screw everybody the same way they're trying to, what anybody else is going to do.
Yeah, thank you, Mishi. And I want to go to India, like, since we talk about India, and I know from my conversations with Parminder, like, you know, and Parminder was like telling me about like how WhatsApp will start a new business model in India, like it's for the small businesses. Like, Parminder, tell us a little bit about, like, you know, how do you see the future in India? And while Parminder is talking about India, and I want to hear from you guys, like, and I know that we have like participants from all around the world, and then particularly from the countries where the WhatsApp penetration rate is really, really high. So we want to hear from you. Either raise your hand or type your questions, but like, you know, we have like 10 minutes left, and I'd like to take some questions or suggestions or comments from you. But let's go to India first. Parminder.
So I go back to your earlier question, whether WeChat would happen in India. I think Mishi also agreed it won't happen in that manner. Country is different, time has passed. WeChat was, like most businesses in China, are an arm of the state in some ways. It doesn't work it like that, but the elite, political, economic elite does come together in different, more insidious manners than in China, where it's blunt. So yes, they would be coming together. It won't be in that manner. There will be what is called digital ecosystems. There will be more distribution of the pie with the local elite, and that's where the Reliance comes in. Reliance is big to be able to shape regulation in India the way Reliance wants to, and that's one of their biggest unique selling point. And that's why every company wants to invest in Reliance, because when you invest in Reliance, you invest in the regulator almost, because they're so good at getting the policy the way they want it. So it will be bad, and therefore the lessons need to be learned. So our problem model is WeChat, and that doesn't mean that just because WeChat won't happen, that's not our problem model. That's our non-ideal type, the ideal type problem. So what would happen here is strategic linkages with payment systems. WhatsApp is already joined Reliance Jio for a new kind of a payment license, which is a very complex thing. I wouldn't get into it. It already has its own digital payment system. It is getting into Reliance to be different than Amazon and Flipkart, which is owned by Walmart. to go to the small shopkeeper and have a hybrid model, the kind Alibaba operates very well in China, whereby you directly do not become the internet mediated shop alone, but you use small shopkeepers both to supply them goods and to take orders from those places and deliver goods through them. And so it's called, it's a bit hybrid system, and WhatsApp has gone into Reliance with that kind of a thing. But of course, it would go into travel, it would go into handyman services, it would go into health and education. Not all these models are very evident. The direction is to do as much of WeChat as possible, but what will happen in India is a more distributed, not, I wouldn't even, I mean, I don't like to use the word distributed here because that's such a nice word. It's a different digital ecologies trying to get biggies together so that they can cheat the law and have some local players take part of the pie. And I think before I close, and I also want the questions, I think we need to step up our fight. I agree with what Nishi says, but I don't agree that we should keep on looking with some new technology model to come. And Apple is great because it lost the war with Google. Google was great 10 years back, and now Apple is great because Apple couldn't do the data game early enough, and therefore now it's late into the data game, and therefore it's playing the good guy like Google played earlier on. So I don't think we can be looking at new business models as our redeemers. I think we should just give that up. Their businesses, they will become bad the moment badness serves them. We need to have new regulatory model. And I think people, digital activists, are still not comfortable to say that new models are needed. The competition commissions of the world will not be able to do it. The technology ministries do not know what economic phenomenon is. They don't understand economic phenomenon. They can't do it. Like the UK has set up a digital markets unit now. You will have to have specific new digital regulators, and civil society should start contributing. We all understand that whatever happens, WhatsApp would become an arm of the Indian state, as WeChat is the arm of the Chinese state. We have to fight those battles simultaneously while agreeing that the regulator, a new digital regulator, has to evolve and start developing the principles and the norms for a new kind of digital regulation and a regulator. And I'll stop here.
I know Erwin has a comment. Erwin, do you want to chime in, and then we can take it?
Yes, definitely. I definitely, I see the point that definitely Europe is a good model in a sense of, it seems that they have GDPR and really driving it. But one thing I want to remind people is that even though China, it's a very strong state, people choose to use WeChat not because the government forced them. See, that's the danger. It's that the law can say, don't do this, but if companies are offering all the service and all the goods, so it's related to the life model and the business model. Many companies are actually earning money because of the process. They don't force the hawker to use the QR code because it's just they sell business easier. It's efficiency. And I agree that obviously we can sit and say efficiency is not the whole thing because privacy is very, very important. But for a normal day person, I mean, just like anybody in Brazil, I would maybe we can just choose Signal over it. But then they would say, well, but I lost all my friends. So that's the first thing. But then in China's case, it's just convenient. We are all lazy people. And it's so easy, and they just come in a way that maybe it's easier for your life, maybe it's good for you, but at the same time this is easy. So and then your life is better, and then they give you points so that you buy things cheaper, all these things and so on. One of the things that I will also mention is that because the stock market gives so much valuation for these companies, they are able to enter any market that they want. Obviously, then this is not just privacy. This is antitrust in a completely new way, because this is like, I'm Microsoft. I happen to do Microsoft Office, so you need to do me. At least those are software. But now we're talking about I am WhatsApp, but I want to do taxi. I want to do banking. I want to do web marketing. And how can you stop all these things? And all these are companies that have global power. So if one country is trying to stop them, at least they should move on. And then another thing, it's that many countries' government, they love this. If this is one very strong guy that come to them and say, I have all these things, you know the China model, I can empower you so that you can also see these things, especially developing countries. These are scary because all the force is against the normal person. Then that's something that at least I would like to bring up. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Parminder. I know you want to chime in.
Just
and
30
then...
seconds. I agree completely with Irwin. These are the problems, and we have been saying these problems for 20 years now. We need to say the solutions, and the solution is that we need to recognize, at least at the activist level, that the conveniences, the efficiencies are huge. This is a time we deliberately cut our conveniences. We say that if you are a platform company, you cannot be a taxi service. That's it. Not when you
But it
become
seems
very
we
big.
are against the people. See, that's the
It's
problem.
not like that. It's no. People is a long term. The same person, his children, his future or her
True,
future
I
is what
agree,
I'm
I
for.
agree.
I'm not for right now. You want to scratch your feet. I will allow you to scratch your feet. My job is to you as a society to benefit you. Not unless we understand that individualistic right now, my convenience, unless we get out of it to the public policy mode where I'm trying to help a society and you as an individual in the society. And there we say that it doesn't matter when you become big, you can't become a taxi company. At the start itself, and that's why Competition Commission fails. It says, oh, I will come in when you are 6 billion big company. No, sir. When you start, if you are a platform, you cannot even run 3 taxis, no taxis. You can't run a barber leagues. You are a platform, make your money, go away. There are many other people who can run a platform. Platform running is not rocket science. We will get somebody else to run it. Make that kind of decisions and models and go to global opinion with that.
Michelle, you want to comment?
Yeah, no, just quickly, I think that, yeah, we have like political problems, like they shape how institutions goes, how the law is prepared to solve these problems. And first of all, they have to understand that these are really problems that they can like kind of regulate or make something about it. And we have institutions. The institutions, they have to work, like they have to, for example, the concentration and the mergers. We have to take a look, really scrutinize when a big tech tries to buy some, like in the last case we had here in the Google Fitbit case. So why Google is looking to buy the Fitbit that produces the smartwatches? They want data, they want other things, and we have to change. This is something that people are saying. We have to change the burden of proof of these mergers. They have to prove that this is the only way that they can do this. They have to prove that this is going to be good for people, and we have to really scrutinize these kind of mergers because they have money, they have power, they can do everything, and they are doing this like in the WhatsApp case. This is a pattern. They buy and they change the things and they exploit people. So this is the things, because what Irvin and everybody is talking is these network effects, these high cost switching costs. If you don't have a place to go, if you choose this is kind of exploitation. We are being exploited by these companies, and our metadata is used to exploit us. It's like we have to be aware of it and be aware of what's happening. Why do we have spread of fake news? Why do we have spread of disinformation and kind of things like that? It's all connected, so it's good to have these kind of conversations to see the whole picture, and it's very nice. I'm very grateful for you guys, and I'm learning a lot, and it's a very nice conversation.
Thank you, Michelle. And we are learning from each other. And as I said in the beginning of our webinar, like today we are kicking off a campaign, Say WhatsApp. So if you want to check the campaign, we have lots of materials, saywhatsapp.org. And we are calling the regulators to stop Facebook and Say WhatsApp. Like, and of course, most of us have options to switch the signal, but there are many others who don't know about Signal and they don't have that kind of option. So it's time for the regulators to act. And one thing, like when we were like working on the campaign document, something I realized because I started to do some research about WhatsApp and Facebook. And when Facebook bought WhatsApp, Mark Zuckerberg said that like, I'm not going to change WhatsApp's like business model until we reach to 1 billion users. In 2016, WhatsApp reaches 1 billion users. Facebook starts data sharing, metadata sharing between WhatsApp starts the metadata sharing between Facebook and WhatsApp. In 2018, like WhatsApp reaches 1.5 million, and then WhatsApp introduces WhatsApp Business. And then 2021, WhatsApp reaches 2 billion, and now we have a new system in front of us. So I see that we are running over the time, but like I see questions from the floor, and I want to give the word to Richard. Richard Hill. Richard, do you want to chime in? Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
You're muting me.
Yeah, there you
now
go.
It's okay. Great. Yeah. Thank you. A great presentation. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to reinforce a couple points and then suggest some solutions. So yeah, from my Chinese friends, it's exactly what Erwin said. Basically, you can't exist in modern China if you're not on WeChat. And as Erwin said, there's a symbiosis between governments, not just in China, everywhere, between governments and people for these things. Cory Doctorow just wrote a book, and I've published a review on it, and he makes that point. The surveillance capitalism is also tied to government surveillance. And I really like Mishi's point, and I want to reinforce that the US will pretend to be good. At least with China, they're not pretending. The US will pretend to have all these high values, and then they're going to come in and screw you anyway. Now, Parminder has called for new forms of regulation, and I fully agree with that. And here are a couple of concrete ideas. Again, Doctorow has suggested forced interoperability. So if you could be forced, to port the data from one to the other, then you'd have more competition. And Michael Kenda has suggested that the criteria for when you're too big should be how much data you're controlling, because it's hard to measure markets and all of that kind of stuff, conventional antitrust. So let's recognize that today it's data that's determining. And so if you have a lot of data, you're automatically a dominant player. And then finally, to Erwin's point, are we going against the people? Yeah, I don't know, because, nowhere can you sell your organs. So some people might say, oh, you're restricting personal freedom because you don't allow people to sell their livers. Yeah, that's part of what we do. So we shouldn't allow people to give away their data simply because they think it's more convenient, and because, as you said, we're all lazy. Thank you very much for that. Again, great session. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. It's good to hear from you. And more questions, comments, suggestions? Like I'll give 5 more minutes for you guys before we close this very interesting webinar. And I see Renata. She's here to tell us a little bit about the campaign we are starting. Do you want to introduce the campaign before we close this webinar?
So very quickly, so just to walk you through, it will be 15 days, intense days. And our objective is to get the attention of the competition authorities, basically, domestically, so they can act. So we are moving to, that's the first target. And the second target is to get a group of parliamentarians also endorsing actions. We need to rely on people in power to elevate these concerns. So please, if your organizations want to join, I added Burcu's personal email there, and you just have to contact her. And if you want to spread the word individually, I added also like the website where you can find resources in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. All is dedicated to the public domain, so you can modify it and adapt it the way you want. And we hope that even if we hope to have results, but even if we fail, I think that the campaign itself is educational, because we are going beyond just, privacy issues and individualistic issues to see it as an ecosystem. And I think that that's, even if you are super secure, super encrypted on your Signal app and on free software and so on, as all of our speakers were explaining, it will hit you at some point if a super powerful actor takes over entire markets and countries. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Renata. And yeah, once again, saywhatsapp.org. That's the webpage of the campaign. And if you want to join the campaign, just get in touch. We will be more than happy to have you guys, and feel free to use the materials. And we have more materials coming up. And okay, I see that like we went over the time. This was a really amazing discussion. I learned a lot from all of the panelists. And so please, like, join me thanking our really amazing panelists who joined us from different parts of the world. And I know it's very late in Hong Kong, particularly Arvin. Arvin, welcome to our community. He's a
Very nice.
Yeah, it was great to learn from you. And for all of you guys who joined us and who listened to us, like, it was really great to have you here, and hopefully we will have more webinars, like more thought-provoking webinars like this. And stay tuned and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.